Welcome to Truth and Transcendence. I'm Catherine Llewellyn, and you can find all our episodes on truthandtranscendence.com. Today I'd like to talk about conscious incompetence. You're probably familiar with the model, which has 4 layers to it. The bottom one is unconscious incompetence, which is where we're rubbish at something and we don't realize it. The next one up is conscious incompetence, where we're rubbish at it, but we know we are. The next one is conscious competence, which is when we become good at it and we're very aware of the fact. And the top one is unconscious competence, which is where it's so natural to us that we're competent, we don't even think about it or realize it anymore, because we're not conscious of it. So I want to focus on conscious incompetence, because that's the one that most of us find most uncomfortable. However, unfortunately, it is actually the gateway to the other 2 above. So being aware that we're rubbish at something is actually the highest point of leverage. It's the point where change is happening, significant change. Because without being conscious of being not good at something, we're not going to change, we're not going to learn, we're not going to grow. So why do I mention this? Because something I've noticed is that if I feel really aware that I'm not good at something, I therefore don't like doing it, I don't like the feeling, I want to avoid the feeling, I will go and try and find situations where either I'm consciously competent or I'm unconsciously incompetent. So I still feel comfortable because I'm not aware of how bad at it I am. Or where I am unconsciously competent because it just happens easily. I'll try and avoid that uncomfortable place of being aware that I'm not good at something. I'm failing at it. I'm trying to do it. It's a struggle. It's a place of struggle. It's a place of difficulty. So I want to reframe that and just say, actually, the healthy place to be in our lives is to have a good amount of the time in a place of conscious incompetence. If we're never, ever in that place, if we always feel comfortable with our degree of capability and competence, we're not growing, we're not expanding, we're not learning. So if in your life you've got something you don't feel very good at, so an example that comes up a lot with people I know is social media, where people say, oh, I can't do social media. I hate social media. And then often the script will then go on into, and social media is bad and wrong, and that's wrong with our society, and nobody relates anymore, and nobody can read books anymore. And this is the litany that can emerge from that. Whereas what's often actually, all that might be true, but what's probably more central to the reality in the moment is that the person speaking, for some reason, needs to engage with social media as part of their marketing or promotion or whatever. And they're really bad at it. They're really not good at it. They don't know how to do it well. And they really don't like that feeling. They really don't like that feeling, and they're not willing to engage with that feeling. So what would engaging with that feeling look like? Well, it would look like somebody taking stock and saying, okay, I've decided to do this. I'm not good at it. What am I going to do? Am I going to learn how to do it? Or am I going to ask someone else to do it for me? Or am I going to do a mixture? In other words, am I going to take responsibility for the fact that I'm not good at it? And am I going to do something about that that's responsible and moves things forward? If somebody doesn't take that position, then either they'll just avoid doing it or forget to do it, or spend a lot of time anxious about not doing it, or resistant to doing it and still not doing it, or they might just throw themselves at it and then get upset when it doesn't work, or then get upset when they're working at 3 a.m. trying to create a post and put up a post because it takes them so long to do it, or because they've been avoiding it for so long. So in other words, that's not a good result. So the good result happens when somebody actually acknowledges, I'm not good at that. What am I going to do about it? And okay to not be good at it, because I can become good at it, or I can find someone else who's good at it. And then you're in a completely different world. The example that used to be talked about a lot when I first heard this model of competence was about driving a car. So you're not really, well, the unconscious incompetence doesn't really exist in terms of driving a car. You know you can't drive a car. Some people who've never driven a car think it looks easy and they think they could just get in the car and just drive it and they'd be fine. And I've seen people get in a car and think it's going to be easy and fine and just try to do it. And I've done that myself. Once some friends of mine said, well, you could just drive our car down the drive. And I went, but okay, great. Why not? You know, we were probably stoned at the time, actually. Anyway, there's so much wrong with this story. So I drove their car down the drive, but I'd never had any driving lessons. I had no idea. No one told me that you have to slow down to take the bend at the bottom. So the car just carried on through the fence and through the wall of someone's garage, not even my garage, through the side wall of someone's garage. Unbelievable situation. And I became very aware then that I was not competent at driving a car. I became conscious of my incompetence at that point. Now, you might think, oh, you know, how stupid were you, Catherine, to think you could drive a car with no lessons? I think that makes my point. I was unconscious of how incompetent I was. And I then started learning to drive. And in most of those lessons, all I was aware of was how incompetent I was, how bad at it I was. And then eventually I reached the point where I was competent enough to actually pass the test. And then it took a long time after that before I really felt capable. So I was well in that third level up. And then after that, I moved into the unconscious competence where I don't even think about it. I can just drive a car. I don't even think about it. But we have that in all sorts of other aspects of our lives. How to be in a relationship, how to make love. Some of us might have cringy memories of early experiences of conscious incompetence around lovemaking. And some of us have had the experience of being consciously capable and actually doing quite well in lovemaking. And some of us have reached the elevated heights of unconscious competence where this is just something that we just flow with and we're actually very good at it and we're very present and very capable. So there's all sorts of, that's two ends of the extreme in terms of important experiences, being able to drive, lovemaking. There are many, many others in between. Bringing up children. Most parents I know have existed in a space of conscious incompetence for years. And actually, with parenting, a lot of people actually become really quite competent, but still think they're not competent. So there can be a bit of a time lag in terms of catching up with ourselves. So if you, in your life, never, ever find yourself in that difficult struggle of, I'm not good at this and I don't like it, then I would suggest maybe push out the envelope a bit. Maybe put yourself in some situations where you're actually doing something that you're not already good at and where there's an opportunity for you to learn and grow. Or maybe you can layer up some of the things you're already good at and add extra nuance to those, stretch it a little bit so that you actually become more capable and stronger. Because what happens then is your essential capacity as a human to learn and grow is expanded. It's not just the thing you're learning, it's the actual process and dynamic and energy of learning that's also being expanded. Highly recommended. Personally, I spent a large proportion of my life in conscious incompetence. And as a result, I've learnt a lot and I've experienced a lot. And I'm also a lot less concerned by feeling incapable now. Sometimes I still am, but a lot less concerned than I otherwise would have been, because I understand and recognize I've fully metabolized the fact that it is part of growth and learning. So conscious incompetence, learn to love it. Thank you for watching and listening. I really appreciate it when you tell your friends about the show, because the show really does grow through personal recommendation. And a lot of people do get value from it. So do tell your friends about it. I look forward to seeing you next week.